Welcome back, Caps fans, to the Janaea Talks Caps podcast. More off-season content for you all today as we're kind of spinning our wheels here until the regular season, or at least training camp, gets underway. But we've got lots of great off-season content for you, and I'm particularly excited to do today's show because we're going to be talking about the man who is responsible for putting so many smiles on the faces of so many Capitals fans over the years. And really hockey fans in general over the years. The man who is the greatest Washington Capital ever, and it's not even close. The man who scored 15 postseason goals to deliver us our first ever Stanley Cup championship. The man who will quite possibly, I'd say probably even, be the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer by the time his career is finished. And yes, I'm calling that right now. He will catch Wayne Gretzky and Gretzky's 894 career goals. He is Alex Ovechkin, Ovi, Alexander the Great 8, captain of your Washington Capitals. And we are going to do a really deep dive into a bunch of Ovi's career numbers to show you just how amazing and just how dominant he's actually been, because I honestly don't think it's even possible to overstate that. He has been that fucking great. But first, I just want to get sentimental for a minute here. So let me ask you guys, where do you guys think the Washington Capitals franchise would be today without the drafting of Alexander Ovechkin in 2004? Because I think it would probably be the Quebec City Capitals right now. They would not still be in Washington because, as we all know, interest in the franchise was at an almost all-time low before Ovechkin was selected number 1 overall by the Capitals in the 2004 NHL entry draft. And it's not that there weren't real true Capitals fans around in DC, because there certainly were. It's just that the fan base had stagnated. It wasn't growing at all. There were the true diehards, but those weren't nearly enough to fill the seats. In order to fill the seats, you need excitement, you need wins, or at the very least, you need hope. You need the promise of a brighter future and better days ahead. So enter Alex Ovechkin. When the Capitals general manager at the time, George McPhee, called out Ovechkin's name over the loudspeaker at the 2004 NHL entry draft, I don't think anyone could have truly imagined how much this one moment in time would end up meaning to the Washington Capitals franchise. Of course, it all culminated with us winning the Stanley Cup in 2018, and everything else from this point on is basically just gravy on top. But even before the Stanley Cup championship, right from the very first moment that Ovechkin stepped on the ice for this team, we have been witnessing a level of greatness that we will likely never see from any other player ever again in our lifetime. In fact, the next time another player can do a lot of the things that Ovechkin has already done, the human race will probably have relocated to Mars by then, which is fitting because this Ovechkin guy is so good, he must be an alien. It all started when Ovechkin stepped onto the ice for his first ever NHL shift, and you might remember he started off his career in the NHL in the most fitting way possible, with a literal bang as he hammered a Columbus Blue Jackets player so hard into the boards that it shattered the glass. And this would prove to be a great bit of foreshadowing for Ovi's career, as Caps fans quickly learned that this was one superstar player who was not afraid of the physical side of the game. No, he actually embraces it. And that's just one of the many things that makes him so special. He's not just a skilled player. He's not just a scorer. No, he will straight up murder you with clean body checks. And at 6'3" and 240 pounds, you had best stay out of his way. He is the epitome of the term power forward. And in fact, his entire first NHL game was a great bit of foreshadowing for his career, as aside from that bone-crushing hit, he also scored 2 goals and helped the Caps win the game by a score of 3-2. And that's become the norm for the Washington Capitals over these last 14 years. Ovechkin scoring goals, delivering crushing hits, and the Caps racking up wins. All in all, the Capitals have won their division in 9 out of the 14 seasons since they drafted Alex Ovechkin, which is simply incredible if you think about it. No other team in the NHL has had a run of dominance like they have recently, and they've done it in 2 different divisions, as of course the NHL reconfigured its divisions before the 2013-2014 season, and so the Caps won 5 titles in the old Southeast Division and 4 so far in the current Metropolitan Division, and they're actually on a streak right now of having won the Metropolitan Division 4 straight times. And of course, all of this becomes even more incredible when you consider that 9 out of the 14 seasons winning a division title is really 9 out of 13 seasons, because one of those seasons was a lost year during the circus that was Adam Oates trying out Jay Beagle as a top-line winger, among the many other nonsensical decisions that he made as coach that year. So I don't even count that year. I pretend it never happened. That year does not exist to me. So we'll call it 9 out of 13 years that the Capitals have won the division title. Anyways, the Capitals have been the most dominant team in the entire NHL over the last decade. In addition to the division titles, they've also won the President's Trophy a whopping 3 times over that span. And what is the common denominator on all of those Capitals teams? Alex Ovechkin, along with Nicklas Backstrom, the Robin to Ovechkin's Batman. And we'll definitely have a Nicklas Backstrom appreciation podcast at another time, because I freaking love that guy. But for now, today is Ovi's day, so let's stick on him. So the numbers, right? And, anytime anyone wanted to argue Ovechkin's greatness with me before the Capitals had won a Stanley Cup, because, some dumbasses like to do that, I would always point to one thing, and that is the numbers. Because numbers, unlike your ex-girlfriend telling you not to worry about that dude, or your mom telling you that you look so pretty today, and no, honey, that shirt doesn't make you look fat at all, the numbers will never lie to you. And the numbers, in the case of Alexander Ovechkin, are almost cartoon-like. Like, seriously, you could not dream up numbers this big if you tried. They're the stuff of video games. It's the type of numbers your dream team you build in NHL 19 would give you when you give every player on the roster a 99 overall rating. This is Ovechkin's world, and we're all really just lucky enough to be alive at the same time as him in order to witness it. So let's start with the most obvious thing, his bread and butter, and that is the goals. He has 658 regular season goals already in just 1,084 games. That puts him already at 13th on the NHL's all-time goals leaders list. And I would suspect that by the end of this upcoming season, he will have cracked 700 and be sitting in 8th place, if not 7th place, on that same all-time list. He is climbing it that quickly. And if he gets another 50-goal season this year, he will either tie or surpass Mike Gartner, who currently sits in 7th on the all-time list with 708 career goals. So, Ovechkin, still just 33 years old. That's easy to forget when you start talking about his numbers. But anyways, his 658 goals scored in 1,084 career games played gives him a goals per game rate of .607. That's 6th on the NHL's all-time list, but first among players who have played at least 1,000 games in the NHL, which is to say that he has scored at the highest sustained rate over the longest period of playing time of any player ever. No one has ever been able to score as many goals as he does and keep it up at such a high rate for such a long period of time. And you probably guessed this already, but since his goals per game rate is first among players with at least 1,000 games played, that does mean that his goals per game rate is higher than that of Wayne Gretzky, who scored at a rate of .601 goals per game over his career. And no disrespect, obviously, to the great one, but he was also doing it in an era where the goalies, if you could even call them that, were wearing something similar to like potato sacks for pads. So I'm not sure that you can really put the same stock into the goal totals there. There's a thing called era-adjusted scoring, which accounts for things like this. So different eras had different goaltending, different defense, etc., and thus goals overall were scored at different rates. So Gretzky, he played in an era of loose hockey where everyone, not just him, scored a lot of goals. Ovechkin plays in an era where basically no one but him scores goals. So for example, when Gretzky was playing, there were on average 8 total goals scored in any given NHL game. During Ovechkin's career, that number drops to 5.5 goals being scored in the average NHL game. And so this is reflected in the era-adjusted scoring, where Ovechkin is ranked solely as number 1, the greatest goal scorer of all time. So when you really look at that, like if you imagine the average NHL game when Gretzky was playing, there's 8 goals total being scored in the average game. So like each team is scoring 4 goals on average. Of course, some games are going to be 7-1, 6-2, whatever. But basically, there's 8 total goals being scored in the average NHL game. That's a lot of goals. Like when you compare it to today, where the average score, obviously we know now by looking at the numbers that there's 5.5 goals being scored in the average NHL game nowadays. So, you're looking more at like a 3-2 score. So it's a really big difference. And that's kind of how, that factors a lot into the era adjusted scoring. Like when you look at it, Ovechkin, he's scoring so many goals. He's scoring as many goals as Wayne Gretzky was scoring. He's scoring more goals per game than Wayne Gretzky was scoring. And he's doing it in an era where scoring is so far down. No one else is scoring goals except for Alex Ovechkin. So, like I said, era adjusted scoring, Ovechkin is ranked solely as number 1. The greatest goal scorer of all time. And the other thing that gives Ovechkin the edge over Gretzky is the sheer dominance of Ovechkin over his peers. As mentioned, there were a lot of goals being scored by everyone to the tune, like I said, of 8 goals per the average NHL game during Gretzky's playing career. The same has not been true during Ovechkin's career. For example, Gretzky, he led the league in goals 5 times throughout his entire 21-season career. Ovechkin, for comparison, has already led the league in goals a record-breaking 8 times, and he's done that over the course of just 14 seasons so far, with hopefully still many more seasons to go. Alexander the Great has been absolutely dominant over every single one of his peers in the goal-scoring department. No one is even close. And that is a great way to get an idea of the picture of era-adjusted scoring. At a time when no one else is scoring goals, Ovechkin, he's doing it with ease, as if it's 1980 once again. Another great way to get a feel for the dominance of Ovechkin is to look at 50-goal seasons over the past decade or so. For example, Leon Draisaitl scored 50 goals for the Edmonton Oilers last season, right? And you remember how big of a deal that was because no one, aside from Alex Ovechkin, had done it in so long. So before Draisaitl scored 50 goals last season, before then, the last guys not named Alexander Ovechkin to score 50 goals in an NHL season were Steven Stamkos and Evgeny Malkin in the 2011-2012 season. That's 7 years ago, okay? The NHL went 7 full years without anyone not named Alexander Ovechkin scoring 50 goals in a season. Ovechkin, he did it 4 times over that span, and he had another season where he had 49 goals. So simply put, no one is even close to the guy when it comes to goal scoring. They're not even... they're not anywhere near his level. He's standing up there on his own level, staring 200 feet down at them all and laughing in his crazy Russian accent. It's not even close. He's already 7th on the NHL's all-time list for game-winning goals. He'll probably have moved up to at least 4th in that department by the time this upcoming season comes to a close, as he is only 3 game-winning goals currently behind the great Teemu Selanne. Selanne sits in 4th place at the moment. But again, I fully expect Ovechkin to catch and surpass him by the time that the upcoming season comes to a close. So most likely we're looking at Ovechkin sitting in at least 4th place in game-winning goals by the end of the upcoming season. He's already 1st all-time in NHL overtime goals, and he's already 4th on the NHL's all-time list for power play goals. Again, we can almost guarantee that he holds that record as well by the time he retires, assuming no major injuries or illness. I honestly suspect he'll hold just about every goal-scoring record that there is by the time that he retires, including Wayne Gretzky's record of 894 career goals. His career really has been nothing short of magnificent already. He holds virtually every Capitals franchise record. He's the Caps' all-time leader in goals, points, game-winning goals, power play goals, even strength goals, overtime goals, hat tricks, shots on goal, games played, goals per game, etc., etc., etc. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. Basically, every record that's meant for a skater and not for a goalie, Ovechkin holds it for the Caps. The only one that almost certainly won't be held by him is the Caps' all-time leader in assists, because that's almost certainly going to be held by his good buddy Nicholas Backstrom. And again, being just 33 years old still, it's not just Capitals records that Ovechkin holds. No, he already holds countless different NHL records as well. For example, he is the only player to have won the Art Ross Trophy, the Rocket Richard Trophy, the Hart Trophy, and the Lester B. Pearson Award all in one season. He scored the most goals ever by a left winger in a single season with 65 goals in 2007-2008. We already talked about how he holds the NHL record for the most times leading the league in goals with 8 goal-scoring titles. And also, we've already talked about how he's the NHL's all-time leader in overtime goals with 20. He holds the NHL records for the most goals and the most points by a Russian-born player. He honestly holds pages and pages and pages of NHL records already. I could go on and on and on for days listing them all, but I think you get the picture. The dude is a tank. He's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, ever to lace up a pair of skates. And overall, to this day, he's already won the Hart Trophy as league MVP 3 times. He's won the Ted Lindsay Award, formerly the Lester B. Pearson Award, which is awarded to the NHL's most outstanding player as judged by his peers 3 times. He's won that 3 times. And he's won the Rocket Richard Trophy 8 times. He's won the Art Ross, the Conn Smythe, the Stanley Cup. He even won the Calder Trophy as a rookie. He's been named to the All-Star team 12 times. Honestly, folks, just enjoy watching this right now. That's really what I'm trying to get across here, because we will never, ever see anything like it ever again. He's a once-in-a-lifetime player. And, as fans, I think in addition to the video game-like numbers that he puts up, the thing that really makes him so amazing is his passion and love for the game of hockey, the joy that he brings to the ice every time he steps onto it, and his ability to always deliver the big moment for the fans. Me, personally, I can point to more than a few personal experiences where he delivered the big moment for me. The first was my first ever Capitals game that I got to go to in person. It was in Calgary at the Saddle Dome, and my mom had gotten me front row tickets right down near the corner in the end that the Caps were shooting twice. I was there amongst thousands of Flames fans dressed in my Ovechkin Capitals jersey. And I don't know if you guys remember this game, but Michael Neuwirth was in net. I did not like him. I thought he was a bum, and he is a bum. And so anyways, the Flames jumped out to a quick lead. But Ovechkin, not to be outdone, he scores once, and then he scores again, 2 goals in 12 seconds for the grade 8, literally bang, bang, one right after the other. And the Caps went on to win the game 7-2. That was my first time seeing him live. And boy, oh boy, was it worth the money that my mom spent. And since then, since moving to Vancouver, I've been treated to several great Ovechkin moments against the Canucks. From the time that Kuznetsov fed him, I think it was with about 3 minutes left in the game, if I remember correctly. It was not a lot of time left, and it was a tie game. And Kuzi feeds Ovi, and Ovi wins it, literally right in front of me, as we were, again, sitting in the lower bowl. I think we were in the second row that time, and right behind the Canucks net. And then even as recently as just last season, we went to the Caps game in Vancouver carrying a big inflatable replica Stanley Cup, hoisting it above our heads in our Caps jerseys all game long. And Ovi, he notched 2 goals and 4 points in the Caps win. He's just never, he just never seems to let you down as a fan. And that's one of the many, many, many things that I love so much about him. You know that you can go to a game as a fan of the visiting team, your Capitals, and you can be as lippy as you damn well want to all game long, because you know at the end of the day, it's all good. Your team's got the grade 8, and so you are going to win the game. And perhaps that, the way that he makes us not just enjoy, but absolutely love and adore watching him, and love and adore watching our Caps, perhaps that's his greatest achievement of them all. Because for a franchise that was once in serious danger of being relocated, to see the rabid fan base in Washington now, every game sold out, and to see so many Capitals jerseys out of town when they're playing on the road, that's something that I'm sure no one really could have even dreamed of before that draft in 2004. And you know what? Now that we've got our cup, I look forward to winning another one, and I look forward to seeing the grade 8 smash Gretzky's goals record and become the first player ever to score 900 goals in the NHL, because it is happening. You heard it here first. So until next time, Caps fans, thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Head over to our Facebook page. Janaea Talks Caps, and give that a like as well. And leave us a review on iTunes if you have a second to spare. I would really appreciate that. Looking forward to chatting with you all again on Monday. We're getting closer and closer to the season now. I hope everyone's getting really excited. I know I am. Cheers, boys and girls and babes. And let's go Caps!